Chapter 3. Beneath the Lighthouse. The rain had stopped by morning, but a thick, languid mist still clung to the earth, curling low over the roads and hanging from the branches like cobwebs spun by time itself. The town of Seokhwa was quiet. Even the ocean, usually restless, seemed to hush as the new day stirred. Seo Ji-eun awoke early, unable to sleep through the persistent weight pressing against her chest. Her dreams had been chaotic, a blur of waves, the flash of lightning, her mother's voice echoing from the depths of water. She sat upright in bed, rubbing the sleep from her eyes, and reached instinctively for the photograph she'd left on the nightstand. Her mother's face stared back, radiant in that soft, unmistakably candid way. A quiet happiness. One Ji-eun had rarely seen during their last years together. But next to her mother in the picture was that familiar void, the jagged tear, the missing man. Someone important enough to be in the photo, yet torn out with such finality. Someone her mother had clearly wanted to forget, or protect. Ji-eun slid out of bed and padded barefoot into the living room. The air was cool, the wooden floors cold against her feet. She moved through the house like a shadow, touching the edges of forgotten furniture beneath the linen shrouds. The clock ticked loudly, marking seconds she could no longer afford to waste. She made a quick breakfast, just a cup of black coffee and a piece of toast, which she barely touched. Her thoughts were elsewhere. They returned again and again to the lighthouse, the last place her mother had been seen, the place where her body had been found, broken on the rocks, and the place her name kept resurfacing in whispered rumors and unfinished sentences. Ji-eun pulled on a thick cardigan, buttoned her coat to the collar, and wrapped a scarf around her neck. She grabbed her leather satchel and tucked the torn photograph inside before stepping out into the mist. The cliffside trail that led to the lighthouse was steep and weather-beaten. Tufts of grass poked out from the cracks in the stone path, and moisture beaded on the brambles that lined the way. The sea roared distantly below, unseen behind the veil of fog, but loud enough to stir her nerves. With each step, the memories grew louder. She had walked this path 100 times as a child, chasing after her mother with a kite or clambering after Yoonwoo and Seo-ah during one of their childhood dares. But that had been before the lighthouse had become a symbol of something else, before tragedy made it sacred ground. The structure came into view slowly, its tall, cylindrical frame emerging like a phantom from the fog. Its white paint was peeling, the surface scarred by decades of sea wind and salt. Rust bled from the iron railing that encircled the platform near the top. The door at the base was chained shut with a new padlock, shiny against the old wood. Ji-eun stood before it in silence, her heart thudding against her ribs. She circled the building slowly, scanning the perimeter. The wind tugged at her coat, and seagulls cried overhead, their shadows flitting like omens across the ground. She paused near the edge of the cliff, where a rotting bench lay half buried in the tall grass. She crouched, brushing aside leaves and debris. Something metallic caught her eye. She reached for it carefully. A locket. Time slowed. Her fingers trembled as she brushed off the dirt. The chain was thin, tangled with roots, but the pendant was unmistakable. Oval-shaped, dulled by age. She pried it open gently. Inside were 2 photographs. One of her mother, smiling, younger, vibrant. The other was that same man, no longer faceless. He looked to be in his late 20s, dressed in a suit, with sharp features and intelligent eyes. Around his neck was a familiar symbol, the Moon family crest, delicate and unmistakable. Ji-eun's breath left her in a rush. This wasn't just a tryst. This was a connection, a real one. Her mother had loved this man, and he had been part of the family Ji-young was now investigating. With the locket secured in her coat pocket, Ji-eun left the lighthouse and made her way toward the lower cliffs where the old lighthouse keeper had lived for decades. Jung Mi-kyung had been a quiet presence during Ji-eun's childhood, eccentric, solitary, often seen speaking to the sea as if it were an old friend. But she had been close to Ji-eun's mother, and perhaps she knew more than she had ever let on. The path to Mi-kyung's home wound through a dense grove of pine trees, the forest floor carpeted with needles and fog. Birds chirped somewhere overhead, their songs muted. Ji-eun reached the cottage just before noon. She knocked twice. No answer. Then a third time, more firmly. The door creaked open. A pair of sharp, gray eyes met hers from behind a curtain of silver hair. "Seo Ji-eun," the old woman said, her voice rough with age but unmistakably lucid. "You took your time." Ji-eun blinked. "You knew I was coming? Your mother did." The answer hung in the air like smoke. Mi-kyung stepped aside. The cottage was small but filled with warmth. Herbs hung in bundles from the rafters, and the scent of dried lavender mingled with seawater and candle wax. Books covered every surface. Some lay open, others stacked in precarious towers. "Sit," Mi-kyung gestured. Ji-eun lowered herself into a creaky wooden chair. "You found it, didn't you?" Ji-eun pulled out the locket and placed it gently on the table. Mi-kyung studied it, her fingers hovering just above. "Your mother wore that every day for 2 years, until the night she died." Ji-eun swallowed. Who was he? Mi-kyung looked up. A moon, one of the younger sons, quiet, thoughtful. "He loved your mother, truly. But love alone is never enough in a town like this." "What happened to him?" "He vanished, disowned. Some say he left the country. Others believe he was dealt with." Ji-eun stared at the old woman. Dealt with? The Moon family protects its secrets like treasure. He was a threat. Ji-eun felt cold all over. And my mother? She knew too much. She kept a journal, names, dates, meetings. She tried to go to the police, but someone warned her off. That night, she came here, told me she feared for her life. She gave me something, for you, said to wait until the time was right. Mi-kyung rose slowly and disappeared into the bedroom. She returned with an envelope, yellowed and sealed with wax. "I promised I'd give it to you if you ever came back," she said, "and now you're here." Ji-eun took the envelope with shaking hands. She broke the seal and unfolded the single sheet of paper inside. "If you are reading this, it means I'm gone, and it wasn't an accident. You must understand, I never meant to leave you like this. But the truth matters. It always has. I loved him, and he loved me. But the family he came from, they're dangerous. If you want to know everything, go to Song Na-rae. She has the rest." Ji-eun's breath caught. Song Na-rae? The name was familiar. The owner of the little seaside cafe. A woman known for her beauty and poise, and for keeping her past closely guarded. Mi-kyung watched her carefully. "You see now why people stay silent." Ji-eun looked up, her eyes blazing. "Not me." Mi-kyung nodded. "Then be ready, because you've just stepped into the storm." Outside, the fog began to thin, but for Ji-eun, the shadows only deepened. As she left the cottage and walked toward the town, envelope tucked beneath her coat, she couldn't shake the feeling that someone was watching. And she was right. In the distance, just beyond the tree line, a figure stood cloaked in gray, phone in hand, the screen capturing her every move. The past wasn't buried. It was waiting. And now it had found her.